Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to visit South Africa. That's in August during the 15th BRICS Summit in Durban. Now, the visit follows concerns about South Africa's stance on whether it intends to act on the warrant issued by the International Criminal Court, that's the ICC, against Russian President Vladimir Putin. The South African government has requested a legal opinion on how to address the arrest warrant that the ICC issued against Putin for alleged war crimes in Ukraine. Well, Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Performance, Monitoring and Evaluation and the head of the ANC's International Relations Committee, Obed Bapela, joins us now to elaborate a little bit more about this visit to Washington. Deputy Minister, great to have you. Thanks very, very much for joining us.
Hey, thank you very much, Leon, and to the viewers of Morning Live.
So I suppose let's start right up front. I mean, this visit is confirmed. Can you confirm that the president is in fact sending an envoy to the United States of America to explain South Africa's position on Russia?
Yes, we have targeted a few countries that we had discussed that we needed to go and explain our position on our non-partisan position and non-aligned position as the African National Congress and as South Africa. And therefore the special envoys will then obviously be, from time to time, be appointed as the norm to go and really go engage with various people, individuals, influential people, governments to some extent, so that the position can be well understood and wrong decisions should not be taken based on us not explaining ourselves.
Okay, so when is this visit happening, and are you able to tell us who is part of this envoy that will be visiting, who is going to be talking to the US?
Unfortunately, that will then be the president announcing the details to the nation and also indicating who are the people that he has selected at the point when he is able to do so. So let's leave it to the president really to talk to the nation about it.
All right. So we can sort of say that you're not able to announce who is going. We will wait on the president for that. But do we have a time frame? Do we know when this is happening?
Well, it can be any time soon because the discussions were long taken. And the president obviously had to apply his mind and look at who could be. As you know, that most of the time is former ministers or some eminent persons in South Africa that have access and respect to those nations that you tend to send a special envoy. And therefore, I think let's just leave it to the president really to make the announcement at the time.
All right. Why are we doing this? Why are we embarking on this visit to the US? Why do we need to explain our position with regard to our relationship with Russia? Are you noticing as a government that there is strain on the relations since our stance on Russia and the Ukraine war?
Well, obviously, there are people in the US who are beginning to point a finger at South Africa, which is not supposed to be, because our relationships with Russia are long-term and they are historical. From when the Soviet Union was still in existence, and when they folded up, we continued with the relationships with the people of Russia, and then also with the governing part of Russia 10 years ago when the ANC signed a memorandum of understanding when Obed Bapela was still the Secretary General of the ANC. I was part of that delegation. We also have a relationship with the Communist Party of Russia, which are, as you know, very, very historic. So, but however, there are people and some of the lawmakers in America who are now beginning to say our stand of non-partisan, our stand on non-partisan and also on the war with Ukraine and Russia are sort of not acceptable by some, obviously in that particular part of the world. So, and we have trade relationships that we have with America, even when Soviet Union then and supported us in our arms struggle. We didn't desert America. That's why we had a very strong anti-apartheid movement in that particular area. And we'll go to those people that supported us during that time to also talk to the lawmakers, any other eminent person, and if there's any meetings arranged for big businesses that are investing in South Africa, we also have to engage with them to say we remain non-stand because we remain non-partisan, but also we are engaging with Russia around how do we then begin to end the war? What will it be that Russia would want to see happening if the war has to end? So that the issue of just going to war and then finishing everything using war should not be the way we look at the world. But also, the last point is that we are for a multipolar system. No country must dominate the others, must not threaten the others, must not have unilateral sanctions on each other. We need then to also ensure that the international law is applied equally to everybody, and the multipolar world that we want must be equitable, just, and fair for everybody. And that is what we are going to be positioning ourselves on those issues, ensuring therefore that our national interests are not affected as a result of these particular positions that we are taking.
When you say that international law must be applied equally, what are you saying? What are you referring to?
Well, as you can see that there are people who waged the war in Iraq, and George Bush, the former president of US, was never indicted by the ICC. Obama on the issue of President Obama on the issue of Libya and the killing of Gaddafi. No one had sanctions. No sanctions were imposed on anybody, and also the ICC did not even come in nearer that situation. And here is a situation of the world that we need to engage around why Russia went to war with Ukraine. The NATO forces and the NATO equipments and arms that have been put up next door or just at the backyard of Russia. And we say Russia has been raising this issue for the past 20 years and no one has been listening to it. So can we then begin to put everybody to the table and say, let's talk rather than use those unilateral imposed decisions on nations and forcing them to take sides on the matter instead of engaging on the matters on the table.
So we have this stance of neutrality. However, the ICC has issued a warrant of arrest for Russian President Vladimir Putin. You bring up the issue of the USA and Bush and exactly what you mentioned there. But let's remember that the USA are not signatories of the Rome Statute, which means they are not bound by what the ICC says. We are. We are still signatories of this, and we are bound by that. And yet, from what we've been gathering, and let me ask you the question straight out, if Vladimir Putin comes to South Africa, will authorities arrest him?
Well, we have never seen anywhere in the world where a sitting president is arrested. It has never happened. And I don't think we're going to be the guinea pig as South Africa to do it. But we are looking at various, the law itself, that we are signatory to, the obligations that it has on us, and then whether there's any escape route that we could do, or we can just simply go to Parliament and go and amend the Rome statutes, because other countries have done so well, like the UK and others who have domesticated, giving themselves exemptions on certain people not to be arrested, even though a warrant of arrest on them. So why can't we also be the same so that we do not then, and we avoid that particular element? But we're still discussing various options as the ANC, and the cabinet is also engaged on its own process, where we definitely will then see what is the best option for us as South Africa, and to avoid arresting anybody, obviously, particularly sitting presidents for that matter. So those discussions are going on, and as soon as they are concluded, we'll then be able to say what exactly is going to be. But there are quite options on the table that are there.
Well, are we in the process of trying to move away and void our signature on the Rome Statute? Because this is not the first time that South Africa has gone against a law. I mean, we talk about Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir back in 2017, where we also refused to arrest him because the ICC did have a warrant of arrest out for him. He was here in South Africa and he got away. And I imagine the same will be for the Russian President Vladimir Putin. What is our stance with regard to being a part of this? And it seems, I mean, we are bound as signatories to obey and to follow the regulations that are put out. Why do we not leave if we do not obey what we are meant to be doing?
Well, let me start it by saying, as we said earlier, USA is not a member. They are refusing to be a member, and they said they will never be a member. Russia is not a member, so is China. Why does the ICC then issue a warrant of arrest to a non-member, such as Russia, and they are refusing to issue the similar to those who declared war on Iraq on the basis of the weapons of mass destruction? Tony Blair and George Bush are obviously people that we really ought to look at those particular issues. But the ANC did take a resolution in 2017 to withdraw. However, along the way, as the instrument was being processed, we were then approached by other people in the world, particularly the Palestinians, who said, if you leave, we are going to make our case weak because we are dependent on you based on historic relations and solidarity. We want the Prime Minister of Israel to be indicted, Netanyahu. And then we then had to look at those particular factors. And then we decided to withdraw the decision to get out. But obviously the domestication now becomes an issue that each time we want certain people to come to South Africa, these warrants of arrest then get issued. The one that is currently being debated, there are allegations that it was initiated by some university in the USA. And obviously, and then using the Department of a particular government department there. Whereas they are not members, they will use NGOs and others to push their own agendas in order to push those countries that do not want to impose certain decisions on those particular countries. And I think those are the issues that we say the implementation of the rules of law, the international rules of law, is unfair, is biased, and therefore we ought then to say, if you can issue to a non-member, why didn't you issue to the others?
So let me quickly ask you, Deputy Minister, we are running into time constraints now. So very quickly, many businesses and people are very worried about South Africa's current stance of neutrality towards Russia. I mean, we've put it on the table, we've spoken about it. We've even had our International Relations Minister, Naledi Pandor, saying that, you know, we have been, as you have said, historical friends with Russia, and we cannot just turn against them on demand. However, when we look at the financial worth of our trade and exports to America, the number of about 400 billion has been doing the rounds. Now, many are worried that this is going to be at stake in comparison to our trade with Russia. America, as well as Europe, it pales in comparison. Do you agree with the sentiment that we are really in a very dangerous ground when it comes to losing the financial trade that we have with these partners that we have already in place?
Well, there's another emerging global organization that is on the rise, that is BRICS, which we are part. It was BRICS before, and South Africa got invited some few years ago. And there was so much demand by other parts of the world that wants to join this BRICS gathering, which also have a bank, and some are applying to be members of that particular bank. And the South is really now beginning to come together to then create a new force that it needs to be reckoned with. We are not replacing the G7, we are not replacing G20s, but we are also saying that BRICS is a factor. So markets obviously will be engaged around that issue, so that there's a new world that is on the rise. And then I think the US and then Europe must also begin to take that into cognizance, not to threaten people not to join, or the de-dollarization activities that are being engaged and the decisions that have been taken. So obviously we are not saying we are going to be just uncaring when it comes to the US market. It's a very important market. We're still engaging. That's why we are sending envoys there to go and engage and say, irrespective of our stand on Russia. We have been trading, and this stand is not new. It has been there, and it ought to be allowed to continue so that we can together then develop that multipolar world.
All right, Deputy Minister, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for joining us here on Morning Live. That was the Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Performance Monitoring and Evaluation, as well as the head of the ANC's International Relations Committee, Obed Bapela, speaking to us about South Africa, that's going to be sending an envoy to the United States of America to explain South Africa's position on Russia.